Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got returning guests, Byron and Margaret McKie. They're a really favourite couple of mine. They were so open and honest about their own journey, and they went on a few episodes ago. So if you've not heard that original podcast around how to maintain and strengthen your connection, then do tune in and have a listen to that one. But today we're going to be talking about how to resolve conflict with your partner. So welcome again, Byron and Margaret.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited to be back.
Yes.
It's funny that the conflict came up as a topic because we are, after 27 years, still learning how to maneuver through those things. I think now the goal is to get in and out quickly with the resolution.
Yes.
And sometimes the resolution doesn't always come right then. And it's like, well, let's just table it for right now, but we're gonna, discuss things. But it hasn't the heated discussions that we have are not they're very tempered. Now, and it's like, okay, we know how to maneuver through this thing, and it's about just getting your point across in a respectable way, and just trying to figure that out. So we do a good job of that.
And realizing when a lot of times we've found that we're saying the same things just in different ways.
Exactly.
So the other night we have a shared vision board on our bedroom wall. And so the other night I'm standing there and I'm looking at everything, and there was a quote. When we created it, we had a big piece of cardboard, and he started on one side, I started on the other, and we moved towards the middle, putting different things on there. And so on his side, there was a quote. It says, when only one of you wins, you both lose. If you beat the problem together, you both win. And so that was something that maybe I saw that, I shared it with him. And so maybe that's something that we're having to live through now.
Yeah.
Because we've had a couple of situations where we have to stop and think, okay, either we're saying the same thing, or maybe I'm not clear with what I'm saying. And so the important thing is to remember it's not me against you, it's us against whatever that issue is.
Absolutely. And isn't it something, I don't know whether you've noticed this, in terms of masculine and feminine, that there can be different ways to resolve things between your man that may be different to how you'd handle it with another woman, and vice versa.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And I also of course the conflicts with him are going to be more important than the conflicts with others, but definitely having to reel in the emotion for me is a big one. And a lot of times I think I project the emotion onto him because I'm seeing things from my perspective only, whereas he doesn't operate in the same energy like you say. And so where I'm thinking, oh, he thinks this, or I'm spiraling in my head, he's like, I just want to say it and us to get to a compromise and for it to be over with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about your feeling around it, Byron? Do you find it different handling your partner in terms of a potential conflict situation? Is different to how you manage it with other guys?
Yes, it definitely is, because usually with my friends, it's usually like, they'll come to me with an issue and I'm like, look, just do this, and it's very direct. And we have that kind of relationship where I can be direct with them and kind of be a little harsh because I'm coming from, in both situations, I'm coming from a level of care, but it's just sometimes with guys, you have to just kind of be firm. So I can't take that same firmness and come home and utilize that same firmness with her. Say, look, you just do this, and then that comes off to
Don't
her
do
as
that.
it
Don't
comes
do
off to
that.
her as just then you're not solving anything because now I've got the attitude that goes along with what I just said. So I need to say the same thing I said to my friend, but just in a different tone or a different way.
Yeah.
I think too with men, and you see this a lot with boys and teenagers. Two men can have a conflict and they can argue, fight, fuss, what have you, and then the next day they're fine
Mhm.
because whatever that conflict is, they resolved it through the fight, fuss, whatever. Whereas with women, we will hold on to things
Absolutely.
and we'll have a bulleted list by the time it comes out and we're bringing up things. So it, like men can move through those stages quicker. And I think that within a couple, learning how to meet in the middle. Because with a woman, if we move through it too quickly, then I don't feel like anything has been resolved.
I think the greatest example of that is I can think from my childhood. In my neighborhood, we had a group of friends. We all played together, and we might have been playing basketball. Somebody went up for a shot and got hit in the process of their shot being blocked. Those two get into it. you know, there's a actual fight that happens, and then everybody breaks everybody up. Those two don't speak to each other for
The rest of
the
the day.
rest of the day. And then the next day we're going to play softball today. So the next day we come together and you start playing, but because the other friends are like encouraging you guys, so like, hey man, we're just gonna play this game, we're gonna be fine. And then you start talking again. You know what I'm saying? And that's generally how it happened when I was growing up with my friend groups. So, you take that into a relationship. And like you said,
Because
the
with girls,
more emotions are there. So it's like
with girls, it would have been there would have been at least two, maybe three groups formed at that point because someone has to be on the first girl's side, someone has to be
yeah.
on the second girl's side, and somebody has to mediate. And the mediator is probably just as messy as everyone involved. So
See,
um
with dudes, is like, look, y'all got to solve this so we can get back to playing this game.
yeah, no.
Look, this is my first time being up by 20 points against y'all. We need to finish this game so we can brag about it.
So when you have those different styles come together, and there are times when I have to stop myself. Okay, is this fact or feeling? And are you projecting your feelings onto him? Um, I look at him and I think because I'm sitting here stewing in whatever it is, if he's not speaking and he's doing something else, I think he's stewing in it also. When in fact, he's not. Because when we stopped talking about it, it was done for him.
Yeah,
And I am the
absolutely.
one who continues with it. So just learning how to, or understanding those differences for one, and then learning how to use those things in a way that helps the relationship and doesn't hurt it is the goal.
Mhm.
I feel that quite often, it's typically, generally speaking, the woman that can forgive, but she doesn't forget. And quite often,
Absolutely.
what she doesn't forget can be things that have happened years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we will bring those things back up, but like I've told him, there's certain things that emotionally they hit me in the same place. And so for those types of things, yes, I will when you did this and when you did that, because it all feels the same. And that's where I'm learning that, okay, just because it feels the same, we're not going to address every other time that it felt this way. We're just going to address this issue and then we're going to move forward. Now, I'm not going to forget it just because I can't, but you don't have to keep bringing it back up. We still, even at this point, we've been married 27 years. We have our podcast, we have our book, and probably about 6 months ago, I said, I've been in therapy for a few years now, and I said, we need to do a couple session. We're going in front of people, we're speaking as about relationships. We need to make sure ours is in place. And when we started, I don't think that he necessarily saw the need. I think it was more of a, if this is what you need, then fine. But as our sessions, as we go through our sessions together, we're realizing that, and I think I can speak for him and say we're both realizing that there are some things that are not necessarily detrimental, but some things that are not as healthy as they could be when it comes to how we communicate with each other when it comes to conflict, because he doesn't like conflict. He's a man. He wants things to, be over and done with and move past them. I don't like conflict with him. And so a lot of times I will kind of shut things down when they're not resolved just so that we can move past it. And that's one of the reasons why those things will come back up. And so we're learning how to, in the midst of shutting things down, trying to get to a place of comfort. When we shut things down, we're learning that, okay, we got to be uncomfortable for a little bit so that we can get a true resolution and not just push it down for it to come back later.
I think about it, and I'm big on car analogies. So,
Yeah.
the thing about it is, like when you look at a car, your car can run fine, just regular gas, regular oil changes, but there are certain products that you can buy to enhance it. You can use a fuel treatment that'll help, cut down on your, increase your gas mileage and things like that. So I think that a lot of times with therapy and, going to counseling, it just helps to fine tune some of those areas that, you may struggle with, but you don't necessarily know how to get past this point. It, like she said, it's something small, but it's something that, a lot of small things can just add up and become one big thing eventually. So you have to learn how to fine tune those things, those small things. And once you get to fine tuning those small things, then you don't have those big things come up that can, be a detriment to the relationship.
Yep.
Absolutely. I tend to teach, and my audience will know this, about masculine and feminine energy, and that we all have masculine and feminine energy, but usually if we're in opposite sex relationships, certainly, it's usually the woman that's got the more dominant feminine energy and the man that's got the more dominant masculine energy as their core energy. And what I've discovered is that if a woman's been hurt or abused or assaulted, but at the hands of a man in her past, quite often she's in her masculine energy as a default energy. She holds it as a protector for herself without even realizing half the time, she's in that energy. And quite often, in a conflict situation, she can default into that masculine energy, and without even realizing it, the man can feel that, oh my gosh, there's another masculine energy in the room, and it can be like two stags meeting and butting heads because, he feels there's a threat, even though he probably doesn't understand how that's happened.
Yep. He's over here giving me side eye.
You just dug into the first 5 years of our marriage.
Right. And it's funny because I do operate in more masculine energy, and in some ways that has been a good thing when there's not conflict. And I've always had a level of tomboy I've always I like cars. I like music, but I like music that I relate to males a lot. So that's a good thing because like we're friends.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
hang out, we do things together. But when that conflict comes up, like you said, we end up butting heads. In the
Mhm.
beginning we did.
Yeah.
Like you said, the first 5 years, because between the walls coming up, um, the protective, um, the stubbornness on both
Mhm.
sides, more so his. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but all of those things come together, and thankfully, we had made a commitment to that, to our relationship, to our marriage.
Mhm.
And so when we get into those moods and get into the conflict and we're going back and forth, um, the resolution would be slower to come.
Mm.
Um, but we would come back to each other at some point and try and make peace. Now, like I said, now we're learning how to prevent it from getting that far. We're learning how to not push things down, but allow the process to happen. Because conflict is good. That's where change comes
Yes.
from. That's where
Yeah.
growth comes
Yes.
from. You
Mhm.
just can't stay in that stage. You have to
Right.
move through it. So,
Right.
but because of how I grew up, I was an only child. I had a very chaotic home life. Um, I had a chaotic teen years. By the time I was 15, I look at some of these reality shows and the scared straight shows, and I'm like, only the grace of God kept me away from those things.
Yes. Yeah. I can relate as well.
Just very poor choices, and then learning why I made those choices and trying to get to a place of healing. By the time we turned 22 and 23, we're married with a child and
Mhm.
having to deal with all of those things. So there were times when we would butt heads and it would get
Yeah.
ugly because, I'm in defense mode. I'm protecting
And
myself.
and the main thing that I had to learn was, well, there was the friendship that we had before we got married. So, you know, I was explained a lot of things, but of course, she didn't give me 100% of the story. So by the time we were in a relationship and were together, there was a little bit more exposure to her past. So once we got married, I knew I had to kind of, it gave me, the more she revealed to me about her past, it gave me an understanding of, why these things were happening or why she would, just blow up at the certain word or some certain action I said. And learning that helped me to say, okay, well, it's not me. It's that I brought up some trauma
Yes.
and she's trauma responding. So, a lot of times, when someone has been in a traumatic childhood, their response is going to be different. My upbringing was different. My upbringing was the reverse. I grew up in a home with love and with caring and with and there was some issues there, but there was more of it was a safe place to be, growing up. So, I had to understand that this individual wasn't brought up the way that I was brought up. So I may need to tailor my response. And in doing so, that helped us grow because I had to explain to her, like, and sometimes we had to, instead of arguing, we had to write letters, you know, and, look, and you said this, and this is what this made me feel. And, I need you to understand that, this can't happen again because it makes me feel like this. So when you're able to, and that's just another form of communication. And you have to communicate a lot of times what is said, but sometimes you have to communicate, okay, this is how it made me feel. And then you relate to your partner, like, look, that's not what I meant.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Right.
right, but you can't do that when it's
When
back and
emotions are gone. Right.
it's back and
Yeah.
forth and you're yelling and screaming, because then it becomes, I want to win this match. I want
Right.
to win this battle.
And
Yeah.
I think for me, I wanted some type of emotional response from him a lot of times. And I don't know if because of how I grew up, I don't know if maybe I felt like that's how you show that you care about someone.
Mm.
But when we would get into it, there, like I can remember a couple of times where, we're going back and forth and he's just not giving me enough, he's not giving me enough anger. So I would say something um to try and push a button so that I could see a reaction from him. And I'm wondering if that's just because when, the situation I was raised in, that's what would happen. There would be an incident, it would blow up, and then the resolution would come the next day or the day after that when I don't know, my mom would get a gift or that. So
Mm.
I think that I was looking for some level of emotional response from him because I felt like maybe that's how you know
That's
that
all you
someone loves
previously
you.
knew by the sound of it, and you were
Right,
looking
Right.
for that
right,
familiarity.
right. But thankfully, um, we moved through those things and eventually I st- I had started to kind of work through some things on my own, and then once I got into therapy, was able to really work through. And so now, at least, like I said, when I start to spiral in my mind, I can stop myself and say, "Wait, he's probably thinking about something he needs to fix, or
Yeah.
Mm.
or something he wants to build, and I am making more of this than necessary." And now we're at a point where I can say that to him. You're not thinking about this anymore, are you?
Yep.
Well, we said our fair, didn't we, when we had a little brief preliminary chat, that quite often we'll default into patterns that we've known previously, even if we know they're not healthy patterns. And it sounds like
Right.
initially that was your reaction in
Mm-hmm.
your relationship, was to provoke a certain response from him that you was familiar with, even though you knew it wasn't probably a healthy thing to do.
Yep.
And actually knew that I didn't want it. I knew that I didn't want the type of relationship that my parents had. But at the same time, we weren't able to communicate enough to each other to be able to, for me to get what I needed to know, okay, we're against each other on this situation, but I'm here for you.
Mm.
And so I just, like you say, you fall back into those things, into what you're used to, even though I didn't want that type of relationship.
It's so
Yep.
interesting, isn't it? Human behavior. So
Yep.
Absolutely.
for you, Byron, how did it feel for you? I'm assuming that because you wasn't used to that sort of being provoked
Mm.
to respond in an emotional fashion, so to speak. How did that feel for you?
Well, I mean, I knew that I was dealing with a very passionate individual who definitely expressed to me that, this is very important to me. But now, as the attacks came, I had to learn that, the attack is not because of me personally. It's because she's passionate about this discussion we're having.
Hmm.
So that's why it was frustrating in the beginning, but then I had, one having the friendship as our foundation.
Hmm.
It's like, you walking around the house and you're upset and you're not speaking to each other for a day or two. I'm used to hugs, I'm used to kisses, I'm used to, being able to just point out something that's funny. And when I can't do that, and that's not a good uh household for me. So I need to rectify this. So, I learned that I had to, communicate to her in different ways. So that's where the letter writing came. I had to
I
say,
think,
look, I got to get this out.
yeah, I love that you did the letter writing because quite often, sometimes I've been in a relationship where it wasn't perceived or received well
Mm-hmm.
writing something because I didn't want to, I suppose, feel I was going to be interrupted or think there might be an anger response that would cause
Yeah.
the conflict to blow up even more. So I think it's vital to sort of have that agreement that, you know, sometimes we're not going to be able to communicate in the moment verbally face to face with each other, but maybe,
Right.
you know, we will be able to say what we need to say via a letter or text or whatever, and
Yes.
then discuss things from there as an alternative option.
Right.
Right. Right. And that was something like, you know, like I said, writing the letter helped me get things out because during the heat of the argument, you know, she would ask me 5 or 6 different questions. And, you know, I learned that I wasn't diagnosed with it, but I learned that I have adult ADHD. So, you know, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm on question number 2. And you go on to question number 5. So, you know, during that letter writing, of course, I would have to go back and like, okay, I need to explain when she asked me about this, this is what my feeling was, or this is what I thought about this. And I need to give you my response because you can't give the response you need when there's a heated argument because, you know, the natural body, you know, you feel attacked. Now you have to defend yourself. So the defense come in where you said this and now I got to hurt you. So you're saying things to hurt each other
Right.
in a loud argument. And not that we had loud arguments or discussions, but we would have, you know, just strong discussions. And a lot of times I would be silent. You know, like you said, she wasn't getting a response because I'm trying to think. I'm literally sitting up there trying to think. How can I respond? And I couldn't get the words. I couldn't find the words to say at that moment. So that's why I had to revert to the letter writing. So, okay, now I can say everything I need to say. And then she would get the letter, break that all the way down. And then now I got to answer 5 more questions from the letter that I wrote. But it did help me to get my point across. And I guess after a while, once she was able to read what I was saying and read it again, it helped her to understand what I was saying.
And without the extra emotion,
Yeah.
and giving time for, like, I can read, I have time to process it now before responding, and the response will come without emotion now.
Yeah.
Because
And
of the
that,
difference, isn't there, between
right,
responding and
Yes.
reacting?
right. And when the emotion comes into play, for me especially, it's like a switch is flipped, and all I can think is, I'm gonna hurt you before you hurt me, or I'm gonna hurt you because you hurt me. And so for me, it's important because once the words come out, you can't take them back.
No.
And so that became very important to us, the writing, because that way I might write down some stuff I shouldn't say to you, but I don't have to give it to you.
Yeah.
I can fix
Letters you've
it.
written but not meaning to send, sort of type stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that became important to us, but also just the act of focusing on that issue and not bringing other things up, and focusing on that issue as a separate thing and not something that he did or that I did, but let's talk about what happened and see how we can get to a place of everything being resolved so we can continue forward.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that time is coming up to an end pretty soon. So I just wanted to ask you both, what is your best form of contact should any listeners be on the podcast that want to connect with you?
Our website is www.beyondidopodcast.com. And we are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
Thank you so much, Byron and Margaret.
Thank
Found
you.
it a
you for
really
having me.
fascinating conversation as always with you two. The time's just gone nowhere today, hasn't it?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right. It went by quickly. I looked up at the thing and I was like, oh, wow, we've been on here for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, any final words of wisdom around conflict resolution that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I want to end how I started with the quote that I shared. When only one of you wins, you both lose. If you beat the problem together, you both win. I need to find the source of that quote because I like it and I think we're going to use that.
Yes.
We're going to use that. It's not about one or the other winning. It's about both of you winning because you decide to solve the problem.
Yes. And I would just like to leave the thought that, from a man's perspective, we tend to, like you said, with the masculine energy, we tend to try to bring those energies into conflict in the relationship, and you have to kind of you utilize more of your feminine energy, and if you can find that and say, okay,
Yeah,
I
I found the
can't
feminine
attack.
response is usually a very
Mhm.
soft
Right.
Right.
tone, a voice to start with, or simply, if he said something harsh, just to simply respond with a ouch.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
like it.
Exactly. Because
Yes.
and like I said earlier, the conflict with a friend is totally different than conflict with my wife,
Mhm.
because I can, talk to him. I can be a little bit more harsh with him because usually it's more of a corrective type thing, or, man, look, you said this pissed me off, and, blah, blah, blah. And when I'm coming to her, I need to be a little bit more gentle because this is the relationship that not that I don't care about him, but we
Yes,
have that understanding that, he talks to me the same way, and we
Mhm.
get, we're good. We're drinking a beer after that. But, with her, I need to be gentle because I'm dealing with, uh, some fragile past. So I don't want, and my goal is when we're having conflict on a personal note is to never have her to feel the pain that she felt when she was growing up. So I don't want to bring any of that to the table. So I know I need to approach any conflict from a different standpoint. So that's my goal at the end of the day.
brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate your words of
Thank you.
wisdom. Found it a thoroughly fascinating conversation. I'd love to invite you on it again and do some more episodes
Of
together.
course.
Of
Of
course.
course. Anytime.
This is fun. Exciting.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.